All right, so today we're diving into the minutes from a New York City Council meeting
Uh-huh.
from back on February 8th of this year.
Okay.
And this was a stated meeting, which is where they actually vote on new laws. So, big day at City Hall.
Yeah, definitely a big one. And you can tell right away because all 51 council members were there. That's a full house.
Out of 51.
Yep, everyone showed up for this one. It's not always like that.
I bet. Okay, so like always they kick things off with what they call mayor's messages.
Right, and this is basically our chance to get inside the mayor's head a little bit.
Yeah, like what's he thinking about? What are his priorities?
Exactly. So he lays out his plans for the next fiscal year. That's fiscal year 2025.
Okay.
And it covers everything, the
Yeah.
expense budget, how much revenue they're expecting, contracts, all of it.
So it's not just like, here's how much money we have. It's more like, here's how we're going to spend your money.
Exactly. It's a blueprint for the city's priorities. And of course, no mayor's message would be complete without a peek at the capital budget.
Ooh, the capital budget. That's where things get really interesting.
Right. This is where they decide on the big, long-term projects like parks, subways, that kind of stuff.
So these aren't just decisions that are going to impact the city for the next year or two. We're talking about potentially decades.
Absolutely. These are legacy-defining projects.
Wow. Okay, so the mayor's painting a picture of the future, but then he throws us a bit of a curveball.
How so?
Well, he announces a new appointment to the Conflicts of Interest Board.
Oh, interesting. Now that is significant.
Right. For our listeners who might not be familiar, tell us a little bit about what the Conflicts of Interest Board does.
Sure. So basically, they're the ethics watchdog for the entire city government. They investigate complaints, they enforce the rules.
To make sure no one's, like, using their position for personal gain or anything shady like that.
Exactly. And they have a lot of power. They can issue fines. They can even recommend people be removed from office.
Wow. So this new appointment, it definitely makes you wonder, what's the mayor's angle here?
Right. Is this someone he trusts? Someone who shares his vision? It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
For sure. Okay, moving on from the mayor's machinations, let's talk about some of the local laws the council voted on.
Sounds good.
First up, we've got Intro 0025-2024A, which deals with senior housing in Mitchell-Lama buildings.
Okay, so this might sound a little dry.
Yeah, it's not exactly the most, like, attention-grabbing headline.
Right, but it's actually a really important issue for a lot of New Yorkers.
Totally, and it highlights how local government can have a very direct impact on people's lives.
Absolutely. So this particular law, it's all about making it easier for seniors to apply for rent increase exemptions.
Which is huge, because as we know, so many seniors are living on fixed incomes.
Exactly, and navigating bureaucracy can be a nightmare at the best of times.
Especially for seniors who might not be tech-savvy or have mobility issues.
Exactly. This law is all about streamlining the process, making it less intimidating, less time-consuming, just easier all around.
And thankfully, it passed with flying colors.
That's great news. It's a small victory, but a significant one.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift gears now to a much broader issue. Citywide health.
Okay, everyone cares about that.
For sure. And there's this law, Intro 0093-2024A, that's all about creating a citywide health agenda.
You know, you'd think that something like that would already be in place.
Right. Like, how do you not have a citywide health agenda? But apparently they didn't.
Apparently not, at least not officially. So this law, it basically mandates that the Department of Health has to create one.
Okay, so it's about moving beyond just reacting to whatever health crisis pops up, whether it's, another COVID variant or something else entirely, and actually getting ahead of the curve.
Exactly. It's about proactively addressing the health needs of all New Yorkers.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, the next law on the docket is one that I think is particularly important. Intro 0039-2024A. This one focuses on providing security for survivors of domestic violence.
Oh, wow. That's so crucial.
It really is.
Yeah.
So essentially, this law establishes a program specifically for repairing doors and windows.
Doors and windows.
Yeah, specifically ones that have been damaged in incidents of domestic violence.
Oh, I see. So, like, if someone breaks down a door or smashes a window?
Exactly. And I know it might seem like a small thing, but think about it. You've just gone through this incredibly traumatic experience. You're trying to rebuild your life.
And you have to come home to a place that's still damaged, still a reminder of what happened.
Exactly. So this program, it's about more than just fixing a broken door or window. It's about restoring a sense of safety and security.
It's about saying to survivors, we see you, we hear you, and we're here to help you heal.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, get ready to put on your hard hats and maybe even grab a cup of coffee because we're about to delve into the always exciting world of zoning.
Oh boy, zoning. Always a roller coaster ride.
Tell me about it. So we're looking at a whole bunch of applications from LU0001 2024 all the way to LU001 2024.
Wow, that's a lot of zoning.
It is. And as always, things got a little heated.
I can imagine. So what were some of the highlights, or should I say lowlights?
Well, let's start with LU0001 2024, which was the Whitestone Lanes rezoning.
Whitestone Lanes, okay. What was the issue there?
So this one involved changing a manufacturing district to a residential one.
Ah, I see. So we're talking about potentially more people, more traffic, more congestion, all those things that people love to complain about.
Exactly. And Whitestone Lanes, for those who don't know, is already a pretty busy area.
So I'm guessing this one didn't go over too well with the locals.
It was definitely controversial, but ultimately the rezoning was approved.
Oh, really? I'm surprised. So what happened? Did the council just ignore the community's concerns?
Not exactly. They actually ended up making some modifications to the original proposal.
Ah, so it was a compromise.
Exactly. So they tweaked the plan a bit. I'm curious, what kind of modifications did they make?
Well, the minutes don't actually go into that level of detail.
Oh, come on. They can't just leave us hanging like that.
I know, right? But we can make some educated guesses based on what we know about these kinds of developments.
Okay, so knowing how these things usually go, what do you think they might have asked for?
Well, traffic is always a big concern, so they probably required a traffic study.
Yeah, that makes sense. Make sure the new development isn't going to turn the whole neighborhood into a parking lot.
Exactly. And then there's always the issue of open space.
Right, because the last thing anyone wants is a bunch of new buildings and nowhere for people to go outside.
Exactly. So they might have asked the developer to contribute to a fund for parks or something like that.
Or even to include some kind of public green space as part of the development itself.
Right, exactly. And then, of course, there's the design of the buildings themselves.
Oh, yeah, because nobody wants an eyesore popping up in their neighborhood.
Exactly. So the council might have asked the developer to make changes to the height, the materials, the overall look of the buildings.
Make sure they fit in with the existing character of the neighborhood.
Right. So even though we don't know the specifics, we can see how the council is using its leverage to try to get the best possible outcome for everyone involved.
It's all about compromise, right?
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where the developer gets to build, but the community also benefits.
And that's how it should be. All right, let's move on to another zoning battle that caught my eye. 962 Pacific Street. This one involved a parking waiver, which, as we all know, is like waving a red flag in front of a bull in this city,
Oh, yeah. Parking is always a touchy subject.
to say the least. So what was the deal with this one? Why did they want a parking waiver in the first place?
Well, it was a mixed-use development, which means it included both residential and commercial space.
Okay.
And it also included a certain percentage of affordable housing unit.
Which, in theory, is a good thing, right?
Right.
We need more affordable housing in this city.
Absolutely. But the problem was they were trying to build all of this without providing any additional parking.
And the council's like, nope, not going to happen.
Pretty much. They rejected the parking waiver outright.
Which I have to say I kind of get. I mean, parking is already a nightmare in so many parts of the city.
Oh, tell me about it. I feel like I spend half my life circling the block looking for a spot.
Right. And it's only going to get worse as more and more people move here.
Exactly. So the council has to think long term. If they start granting parking waivers left and right, it's going to create even more congestion and chaos.
It's a tough call because on the one hand, you want to encourage development, especially when it includes affordable housing.
Right.
But on the other hand, you don't want to make an already bad parking situation even worse.
It's about finding that balance like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground with zoning, but I want to circle back to those local laws for a minute.
Sure.
We talked about the senior housing bill, the citywide health agenda, and the security measures for survivors of domestic violence. All really important stuff.
Absolutely. Those are all issues that have a real impact on people's lives.
Exactly. And I think it's easy to get bogged down in the weeds with all the technical details, but at the end of the day, this is what local government is all about.
It's about making life better for the people who live here.
Exactly. It's about providing essential services, protecting vulnerable populations, and creating a more just and equitable city.
And sometimes it's about suing the mayor.
Oh, yeah, we can't forget about that little bombshell.
Right. the council's decision to sue the mayor over the city FHEPS program.
That's a whole other deep dive waiting to happen.
Seriously. But it just goes to show that local government is anything but boring.
For sure. It's messy, it's complicated, and sometimes it's downright dramatic.
But it's also incredibly important, and it's something that we should all be paying attention to.
So we've seen the council flex its muscles on zoning, but suing the mayor over city FHEPS, that's next level.
It really is, and it gets to the heart of this tension between the branches of government. You've got the council making the laws.
Right, they're the legislative branch.
Exactly. And then on the other side, you have the mayor who's supposed to actually make those laws happen, implement them. That's the executive branch.
Checks and balances, right? As one branch keeping the other in line.
Yeah.
But in this case, the council's saying, hold on, you're not holding up your end of the bargain.
Right. They're basically saying, we made these laws, now you have to actually put them into practice.
Okay, so for those of us who haven't been following every twist and turn of this whole city FHEPS saga, give us the rundown. What is it, and why is it such a big deal?
Sure. So City FHEPS stands for City Fighting Homelessness and Eviction Prevention Supplement.
Catchy.
Right. It's a mouthful. But basically, it's a program that gives out rental assistance vouchers. The idea is to prevent homelessness by helping people pay their rent.
Makes sense. So where does the conflict with the mayor come in?
Well, the council had passed some laws to make City FEPS even better, expand who's eligible, make it easier to apply, all good stuff.
Right, because sometimes even the best programs, if they're too hard to navigate, they don't actually help the people who need it.
Exactly. And I think the council felt like the mayor was dragging his feet, not putting these changes into effect quickly enough. People are struggling, facing eviction, and they need this help now.
So they took him to court.
They did. It's a bold move, but it shows how seriously they're taking this issue.
And that they're not afraid to stand up to the mayor when they need to?
Exactly. It's about accountability.
Wow. This whole deep dive has been quite a ride. We've gone from budgets to appointments, zoning battles, and now a full-blown lawsuit.
It's a lot to keep track of, but that's local government for you. Never a dull moment.
It's easy to tune it all out, right? It can feel so far removed from our everyday lives. But it's not. All of these decisions have a real impact on our neighborhoods, our communities, our city.
Absolutely. And the more we understand how it all works, the more we can make our voices heard. Go to a community board meeting. Contact your council member. Get involved. You might be surprised by how much influence you can have.
That's such a good point. And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the wild world of New York City government. See you next time.